Okay. And what about my screen sharing? Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, nice. So first, we may start from your questions regarding our past lesson. Maybe there are some not so clear items and topics that should be explained more. So if you cannot suggest any topics that should be described deeper, I may make my own conclusions about that based on your home tasks. And again, thanks to everyone who already has sent me the results of home task. I can highlight several items that are specified here. And briefly regarding the last home task. So the first point is definitely very easy. The same for number 2, the same for number 3, because when you copy or move objects, seems that there are not so much difficulties. And by the way, that wasn't shown during the lesson. So let me show one trick that may be really useful for us during your education. When you operate with several command line tools in Linux, and maybe not even in Linux, I also mean macOS, I also mean Solaris, BSD, and another Unix-like operating system, very many of at least simple command line tools have such key that is named verbose. And really a lot of at least simple and so-called core command line tools really have such -v or --" verbose argument that really explains which operations are being performed during the command execution. So, for example, imagine that for you it's hard to understand how CP utility works or how MV tool works. So we can reproduce, for example, the first point, the first item, and make dir 2, 3, and so on, touch several files, for example, and make another directory that will be used to move such files. So cp dir and mv dir. And imagine that you cannot understand how such tools work. And when we use -v key, we'll really see what's happening. I'm sorry, because I definitely forgot -r key. Okay, and later we can inspect the content of cpdir, and we see that okay, everything is fine, and the result is really expected. And the same works for mv too. So when we run mv with -v argument, for the same objects, I mean dir1, dir2, dir3, and files. And I want to move them into MV directory. So really, I see what's happening. And just for example, we will learn such tool at the end of our module. What if we want to create an archive? And seems that I have shown you such utility during the past lesson. It's named tar, and it's designed to create Unix archives. As you may see, I also specified -v key here, and I would want to create an archive. And such archive would be based on, for example, CP directory and MV directory. And due to -v key, I will see what's happening. So you see which objects have been taken and put into such output archive. And the same when I would want to see the content of the archive. So I see the content in an extended mode. When I omit -v key, I will see only file and only names of files and folders. And as for you, is such new information useful?
Yes, it's useful, but sometimes it's hard to understand when several keys in the row their meaning, like after tar -C, Z, V, F, and that's
okay. So regarding such new tools, again, that will be completely explained at the end of our module. If you see something that you cannot understand right now, you can always type man tar, right? Enter, then you press slash, and then you want to find the exact argument, right? C. And you will get the full explanation what such options really means, right? And what's about -f, right? So we see that we need to specify -f argument to explain the tool which output file will be used for the recently created archive. So when you know the exact command name and when you know especially exact name of the argument, it's very easy to find its meaning, right? And if you want to refresh such information of how you may search across man pages, you may easily refer to our lesson number 1, and you will see the complete instruction of how you may search across man pages.
Can I ask some questions? Sorry.
Yes, sure.
Further, how often do you use man comment? I mean, do you remember the meaning of each comment by heart, or how is it going?
Okay, this question is very interesting, and the answer I hope will be really useful. Man is a priceless source of information, and especially when you make your first steps in Unix, the man should be your best friend. Even for me, I cannot claim that, okay, I remember all the keys of all at least core tools. So because that's not true. And of course, I remember at least most frequently used keys of most frequently used tools. But if I forget something, I can easily refer to men, and I will get a complete explanation of how such things really work. But there is a pitfall related to man command. You should consider man only as a reference. Because if you don't know something, so for example, if you don't know how to install software, or if you want to mount a new file system, or if you want to understand some conception, man is not the best thing to help you in such tasks. So man is an ideal thing to answer your question regarding the exact command and exact keys. But when you need to learn something at the high level, man is not the best thing in the world.
Thank you, I see. So we just should get to use the comments. All right, thank you.
So I wanted to explain that before you run man something, you need to know the name of something. And man utility can provide you some kind of additional information. Or when you scroll at the bottom, you may see, so that's not here because CP utility is really simple. But for example, what if we want to get information about something more complex? I'm not sure which utility will provide such useful information. Yes, right. So for some man pages at the bottom, you may find such very useful and interesting section that is named C also. And here you may find something that is potentially useful to get additional information about similar operations or the adjacent materials or anything that is similar and that may help you to understand such tool better.
All right, I see. Thank you so much.
But I cannot guarantee, and you have seen the same fact 1 minute ago, that such useful and interesting section as C also may not be found in some another main pages. Okay, Tim, maybe you have another questions regarding our first and second lessons. Maybe you can remember something. So, if not, I remember that I have got a question to PM regarding the common meaning of Unix command syntax. So the basic question is what's that, what's that, what's that, and so on. And I decided to explain such very useful topic at the beginning of our current lesson. So when you want to execute something in command line, first you need to to specify the name of the command. So it may be tar for making archives, right? It may be man, it may be cp, mv, and anything else that you have already learned, or anything that you will learn in the future. Then, so some commands can be executed without any arguments, and that will really work. For example, if we want to know when our machine was rebooted, we may execute the command that is named uptime without any arguments and so on, and we will see some useful information, right? The same. So, and one similar case is, what if we want to know the version of our kernel? So as for the kernel version, we may need to use another argument, but anyway, there are commands that can be executed without any arguments, and there are some commands that require arguments. For example, you cannot run cp without any argument, because you will see such error message, and it means that such tool really requires some additional information of what can be done. And another tools may be used even without arguments or with some arguments. And every such item is really described in the corresponding man page. So when we open man page for uname command, we may see that such tool may be used with some options, and we see that it can be executed without options, and we also may see which options are appropriate for the command. But uname is really simple tool again, so we see that such page is really short, and when we try to open main page for something more complex, for example cp command, we may see that I may count how many pages are presented there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, around 4 pages. And also we see that such tool has a lot of arguments that you may specify during its execution, and also so cp utility can be considered as really simple, and when it turns to something more complex, again let's refer to man tar. Also very useful section is examples. But again, such section may be found or may not be found. It really depends on the exact man page. So returning to the topic about the command names, arguments, and so on. The main, how we said, so we need to input space between the command name and their arguments and so on. When we use such arguments in short form, we may combine them. So when we use ls command with short options, we may type ls space -l space -big F, or we may shorten such things into ls -l -big F, and such construction is really working. But when we try to use something longer, again, regarding one pages, for several options, there might be a short form -f, right? And there might be a long form. So we may also invoke ls command and specify such arguments not in short form, but in more self-explanatory form. Sorry. And you see, there is no long form for -l. So let's pick up something different. For example, -g. And you see that there is no information about the group name compared to ls -f. And we may get absolutely the same result when we specify -g and -f in a long format.
Fyodor, I'm so sorry. What's that G and F? I just noticed something about F. I'm not sure if I understand it, but I understand LS, it is list. L, it's long. I mean, long explanation, but what is G? What is F? And just if you wanna, if you can give an information, where can I find it? I remember in the first, I'm so sorry, I will learn it in 3 days, but I remember on the first lesson, you said something about you even search it in the internet, but I do not remember what did you search? I mean, how can I search it? For example, I found in the internet, just a second, I found in the internet something like, just a second, I have a lot of.
I completely understood which item do you mean. So, seems that we discussed something like following, right?
Pardon me?
Am I right?
No, I said, pardon me. It means I did not understand. We discussed it where?
You said that, I'm sorry, that during the first lesson, I have shown you something that I searched in internet, and later we discussed it, right? So do you mean something like Linux cheat sheet, right?
One of the lessons I asked the question.
Yeah, I remember
yes,
something.
right. Yes, right.
And he showed this information in internet.
Yes, guys. So
Linux, I have to write it.
I can say you that please do not refer to Linux cheat sheets unless you know the meaning of the commands, and I explained why. So after some time and after the end of the model, we will know a big amount of very useful and really essential commands, and that would allow you to separate useful cheat sheets and maybe wrong cheat sheets and maybe very how it can be said, very unclear cheat sheets.
Okay, thank you.
And regarding your last question of the meaning of -L, -G, and -F, again, we know that there is man command. So we type man space ls, right? Then we want to understand the exact meaning of each argument. We type slash, then we type the pattern that we would want to search. For example, the meaning of -F, and then we press enter, and then we jump to the first occurrence of such template, and we see the meaning. And 1 minute later, I will show you how it really works. The same for example, -G argument. And the exact instruction of how you may find across many pages is described in our first material.
Thank you.
And regarding -big F and how it really works, so you may simply compare what you see after execution of ls -L, you see, and then we may execute ls -Lf, and what's the difference, right? So we see that, for example, when ls displays you a record of some folder, -F option will add this symbol at the end of each line that is folder. So we compare this listing, and we see that in the first case, we do not see any slash at the end of file or at the end of any object name. So when we try to see some, for example, executable files. So as for chmod, we will learn such command, and moreover, the principles behind the command a bit later. And again, let's look and let's find the differences between ls -L and ls -L and big F. So
may I ask you something?
1 minute, one minute, please.
Okay, I found this something, drwxr -xr, whatever. D is direction, R it's reading, W writing, X it's execute, reading. But for example, if I need to change something, will you understand how can I ask about
we will definitely dig really deeper into such topic in 1 or 2 lessons after.
Okay, it means the name started from D, it's directory, correct?
Absolutely right.
And not started, let's say like this, for me, not started from D, it's a file, correct? It's not directory?
It's not, you may see that for typical file, we will see a dash here. But if this object is a symbolic link, we will see L.
Say it again?
So
if this object,
because user config is a symbolic link, and that's why the first symbol in its line is L.
Symbolic link?
Yes, right. And such information is provided in the first material.
Mm-hmm.
So, and let me check.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not in the first, maybe in the second. So I need to ensure the exact.
Simply click, it's a second.
Yes, right. So we learned such material during the second lesson. But anyway, let me inspect our PDFs.
It's a 10 page.
10 page for so let me show you the updated version of our first PDF. And here you may find everything. So I hope that I have answered your question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as far as I remember, there are no more questions regarding our past material. And if I'm wrong, so please correct me and say which topics require an additional explanation. Okay, so that means that we may start the new material, or maybe not so new because it was uploaded just after our past lesson. So we may again we may start from your questions if you had time to look at this PDF, and if you have some exact questions of the material that is explained here. Guys and girls, okay, so I may simplify my question. Who had enough time to at least look at this PDF before the lesson?
Not me.
I had enough time. I read information, but it's, you know, in general, it's a bit difficult. So I had to watch some videos on YouTube, and so I'm just waiting for the lesson start, and that's it.
Okay, so I understood your point. Maybe someone else wants to describe his or her experience with our newest PDF.
What is exactly pipe? It's just a symbol to run the commands at the same time, because I read about another type of pipe, which is file, and we created to move something to one point. And I think it's early for us to study APS. Is it a command a tool, or it is a channel to redirect information?
Okay, so let me please make notes at the second laptop. So your question is about pipes, right? Okay, understood. So do you have any more questions regarding our newest PDF?
Why do we need to use sort without any attributes before to use unique command?
Okay. I noticed the question. Any more items?
And it's not clear for me about grep, egrep, fgrep. It is written that we should get to use egrep, but I read that it is an old tool, and now in GNU Linux, grep is much more wide, and we should use grep with a big E option and something like this.
Okay.
The command grep is not clear for me also. So.
Do you mean such command to be used with a simple fixed type patterns, or do you mean regular expressions? Or do you mean any invocation of the command regardless how complex are their arguments? I'm sorry, but I cannot hear your voice.
For me, it is clear about both regular expressions and just standard version.
Okay.
Patterns.
Okay, so maybe you are lucky.
For me, in general, it's so hard to understand without practice. Sorry, it's like the other topics. So in the beginning of the topic, you think that it's so hard. Oh my God, what to do? But after practice, it's okay. So the same here.
Okay, understood. So I noticed your questions, and now I know which items really require deeper explanations. But again, I would also want to listen for any more questions from another teammates.
Oh, for me, that's hello. For me, that's a problem with the first problem with arrows. Yeah, like I can understand the meaning of the special symbol. Yeah, like the fourth, the same as second one, but for errors. And why it's what does it mean for errors? I can still can't understand. Correct.
Okay, so maybe you mean %. I just have written such special symbol into our Zoom chat.
No, with this one, that's okay. I mean, there's third slide. Shell special symbols and input output redirections. There's fourth command, whereas explanation of this command as the same as the second one, but for errors, and hard to understand the difference. And I have a problem to understand why we do like
so
yeah.
Okay, so and regarding such error output, your question is why we require so why we need to separate normal output from errors, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to explain that as well.
And home task question, you write it expected result, a link to Google Docs. That means it will be better not to attach files, better
yes, right,
links,
absolutely.
to Docs or to Sheets.
Yes,
yeah?
Yes, right. Because for me, it's much simpler to check your home task that is written in such format than to download some files and open them and so on.
And where should we better send the link to Google Doc, to PM or to a platform?
It's much better to put the link into Get course.
Okay, and one more question, just to clarify, home tasks which are not marked with a that we should send the link, should we send it also, or I just didn't understand how to send previous home task to if it is not written that we should send the link, should we send the home task, or just we practice and ask questions on the next lesson?
I can say such maybe bad thing that currently our regular home tasks that are described at the end of each presentation really are not so mandatory. So I hope that all of you are not lazy persons, and I hope that every one of you does his or her best to understand the material and so on. But speaking formally, I can say that your marks for both Linux module and networks module will be based on a great home task that will be provided a bit later, and such tasks specified in this great home assessment will be really simple to what you can see in our regular home tasks. So again, for you is much better to complete every regular home task, because if you make some errors in your typical home tasks, that's not bad for you. And if you make some mistakes, I will specify which exact mistakes you have made, and that is not bad for you. But regarding the great home assessment, that is the basis for your marks for Linux and networks. It's better not to make mistakes.
Okay, understood.
I'm sorry, Fedor, I still didn't understand regarding homework and then estimated time frames for the homework. For example, for today, I should prepare the home task on the previous lesson, and I didn't understand, should I prepare the home task for the future lesson or not? I mean, this presentation you gave us last time, like the topic for today. In the end of this topic, we have a homework. Should I prepare it also for this lesson, or should I prepare it after this lesson?
It depends on many things. First, it depends on how good you have understood the material. And if you consider that you have understood the material well, it means that you may start doing your home task.
Okay,
so again,
got it. Thank you.
Again, you even may omit all regular home tasks. You may even not send any typical home task to me. It's up to you. But you have to complete the great home assessment that will be provided a bit later. You will have enough time to complete that, and your marks will be based on your results shown in such great home assessment.
So sorry, assessment or assignment?
Home assessment. So you may consider that as a very, very big home task with a lot of points and so on. Okay, so we may, I hope that right now we may start to dig deeper into the presentation. It's not the one. So I hope that you remember the first point, right? And I decided to include the point number one just to gather all special symbols into one place. If you have some questions regarding that, you are free to ask. Okay, so if you are silent, it means that the point number one is completely clear, and we may continue to the point number two. So it seems really simple, and actually it's simple. So why we need to have such ability? Because, for example, our command that is being executed may produce a lot of output, and it really depends on which command do you execute, and for some reasons we may want to save the command result into some file. That's why we need to have the corresponding ability, and it works really simple. So for example, we may refer to get command because probably the most frequent use cases of get tool is how to glue together many files into one final file. So imagine that we want to collect the complete information about our configuration of users and groups into one file. And maybe after some search in internet, we know that there are two files. So the first one is responsible for your account configuration, and the second one is responsible for the groups. And what if we want to glue such files together and to save the result in some specific and separate place? So let me clean something unnecessary. Already exists, so let's remove this one, this one, this one. Anyway. Let's remove lessons. Okay, so again, we know that there are two files that we want to glue together and to save the result into one output file. And we can do that in a very simple and clear manner. So we may invoke get command that, as you remember, will print every file that you specify in your command line. But when we use output special symbol, the command output will be written to a new file or to files that already exists. I know that right now the file is missing. So you see that we cannot find the file in our home directory. I'm sorry, I specified another file. And let's see. And right now we see that such file exists. And we may inspect by, for example, using less command its content. And we can see that the file begins from the content of etc passvd, and then it continues with the content of files that it is responsible for group information. So is this sample so for you, is it useful, and is it obvious or not?
Further, I can understand when we do such command like cat and glue to files, where should be user .info file in such directory, and why? Because we didn't write any directory for this file.
I'm sorry, seems that I haven't got your question.
Where stored the file user.info?
So let's see. We haven't specified any exact path for this file.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't specified any directory names and so on. We just type it, the file name and so on. So it means that the file will be created in our current place, right? So right now we are staying in our home, and it means that when we don't specify the full path, this file will be created in our current working folder.
And that's like a rule. If
yes, right.
Okay, I got it.
Yes, right. And it works in the same manner. For example, if you create new files by using touch command, if you create new directories by using mkdir command, and everything that you use to create new files, to copy files, and so on, or to say more common to work with files. If you do not specify the full path, it means that such file or directory names will be taken from your current working directory. So instead, if I want to specify another place, I may type something like that, right? And such file will be also created here. So we may ensure that right now such file is missing. You see. And when I press enter, and this file would be, and this file has absolutely so definitely it's a copy of our first file, because such files were created based on the same content. And there is at least one pitfall when you work with such special symbol and when you overwrite the content. So as it's described here, it writes output, and when we use such symbol twice, it appends. And the main difference is the following. For example, imagine that our output file really exists and has some content. So I can edit the file, nano, and let me insert some new data here. And I want to save the content in, and I may ensure that the content was successfully written there. What if I use such symbol twice? I'm sorry. Yes, right. So, as you see, the command output will be appended at the end of our file that already exists. Because, as you remember, the file ended up with such lines. And right now we see the new portion of content that was added by get command. So is it clear? I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yes.
Okay, nice. And what if we use such special symbol only once?
It's remove another data which contain this file.
Absolutely right. So when we use such special symbol only once, it means that that every previous content will be removed, and such file will be and such file will contain only the result of the command. And I can say that there are different use cases, and for some use cases, it's more useful to rewrite existing files, and in another use cases, it may be more useful to append new information to any existing file. And anyway, that's interesting and useful if we use such special symbol twice, and if we specify something that is not existing now. So let's see the listing and the content of our current working directory. Let's see what will happen if we try to append the command output into non-existing file. So let's try to use, I don't know what, get sysconfig network scripts. So let's, for example, write the content of this file into some non-existing object. So the command hasn't shown us any errors. Let's look into our current working directory, and right now we see that such new file was created, and we may inspect its content, and everything is okay because we see that the content is the same. So such special symbol that is duplicated can also create new files if such file does not exist. And I said that when we use simple construction that is used for rewriting the content, there is one pitfall. And the pitfall is the following. Imagine that we have two files, and such files are very simple. So a bit later, I will show you the command. So file 1, file 2, and such very simple command is used to print something you see. And when you need to create a very simple and very short file, and it's better, and if it's faster for you to type the content into command line, it's better to invoke echo utility instead of using something like nano and so on. So right now we see these two files, and we can inspect their content, right? And the result of get of both two files is just as expected, and seems everything is okay. But what if we try to redirect the output into one of these input files? Right, so if we use such construction, probably we expect that file 1 will contain these lines, right? And let's see what will happen. But in some implementation of get utility, when we try to use the similar construction, file 1 will be empty after the completion of the command. So before you press enter, please ensure that output file differs from input files. Okay.
Further, I have the same problem when I did file hello world in home task and created hello world.new, and Bash wrote the same, that input file is output file, and I just throw it to the def null.
So
I was
okay.
wrong, yes.
Okay, right now I cannot say whether you were wrong.
I mean
not.
that names of files were different, but looked the same. They both were hello world, but with some differences. And
Seems
the program wrote the same.
Seems that you made a mistake, and we may discuss that in
Okay.
details in PM after the lesson. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, and as you see, if we try to append, even if we try to append, that is much safer compared to rewrite, cat utility will also signal us that such operation is not good and I won't do anything with that. Okay, team. So do you have any questions regarding points first, 1, 2, and 3?
Just one question.
Mm-hmm.
If we do the third command with non-existent new file, yeah, that's the result the same like the second one.
Yes,
command.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yes, right. It's so you're right, and the main difference is related to files that already exist. So when you use command number 2 against a file that already exists, the previous content will be changed. So the previous content will be erased, and the new content will be written. And when you use the command number 3, new output will be politely appended here. And that means that you will save your previous content and the new content will be written into the end of the file.
I think Vyacheslav asked about non-existent file, not about content.
Yes, understood. So seems that I have answered the question regarding non-existing files. But Vyacheslav, if you have some more questions about that, you may continue.
no. Now that's okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I look at the clock and seems that now it's time to make a short break. So I will expect you in 8 minutes. So 25 minutes past 7. I think that it's a good time to make coffee or tea, and let's meet again in 25 minutes past 7.
Oh, okay.
Are you here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So we finished the point number 3, and let's continue to the point number 4. I remember that such point wasn't clear for Vyacheslav, and let's figure out why it's so important and so interesting and so on. So I tried to do my best when I created such slide to better explain what is normal command output and what is error outputs. So I hope that you may read this slide after the lesson. And right now, let me show the practical usage of such construction. Imagine that, again, returning to cat command, imagine that you try to operate with a lot of files because you may specify almost everything. So I can do something like that. And by the way, I will see a lot of error messages because some part of etc directory is protected from both reading and writing by typical accounts. So you see that I really have a lot of error messages for some files. I see that I cannot read them. For another objects that are directories, I see the corresponding error message because I cannot get a directory because it's not a file, right? And what's about my file? I see that the file was created, and I may try to open the file, and I see that there is a lot of content here. So that's the real sample of command line tool that may produce normal output that was written to such file that I specified in the command line. And also I may have a lot of errors, right? And what if, for example, I would want to separate such normal output and errors? I may slightly change the command, and I may type something like that. So I may use any file name, so it doesn't really matter. And I may use the following name for error output. And during the command execution, I will see no errors. So I will see nothing because everything is redirected to these both output files. So you see that I was right, and everything that was produced by cat command was written to such output files. So again, let's inspect the content of the files. etc files listing, right? So I see some content there. So something was written, and seems that everything is okay. And more interesting thing, let's look at this file. And as you see, all error messages regarding troubles with access permissions or regarding directory objects are written here. And maybe now you can suggest some ideas why such construction may be really useful. So as for me, it's better to listen your versions and then try to comment your ideas and suggestions.
We can work with error logs later when they are in one file, or maybe we can just redirect errors to clear our output on the terminal.
Absolutely right. So both your suggestions are correct. Because for some use cases, we are not interested in such error messages. Or for another use cases, maybe we are interested just in error messages because later we want to return here and to figure out what's going wrong and to find the root cause of anything and so on. Especially, it's very interesting for QA engineers because you as QA engineers will mainly work with errors and so on. That's why you need to know how you may write all errors that were found during the command execution to a special file, and then to inspect this file more accurately and see what's wrong with that. So, the main idea of error output. So the main idea of how you may write your output of errors is the same as you work with a typical command output. I mean that, for example, you may use one special symbol like greater than, or you may use the symbol twice. And its meaning will be the same as for the case number 2 and number 3. So the main trick and the main difference is that we specify number 2, and 2 means that we want to work with errors, not with the normal output of the command. So as you see, such file was created, and based on its size, we can assume that the content is the same. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And Vyacheslav, do you have any more questions about the usability of such technique?
No, now it's absolutely understandable, and yeah, that's a great thing for testing.
Okay, so it's nice to hear that. And if everything is clear with point number 4, we may continue to the point number 5, or if you have any more questions regarding error redirection to files, you are free to ask such questions before we pass next. Okay, so the point number 5 describes some maybe awful or don't know not so simple construction with ampersand symbol or with number 1. So and we need to know the principle of how it works. Regarding when we start from the end of the line, what's number 1? Number 1 is no more than the number of our normal output. So when we type cmd greater than file, it really means the following. So let's compare the file sizes, and we see that, I'm sorry, the content is not the same, but maybe because some content in etc directory was changed during the, was changed between this command execution, and let's try to do something another. For example, what if we try to glue together several files from etc with fixed names and so on? For example, etc group, etc passvd, and etc shadow. These three files actually are responsible for all user configuration. So speaking about etc group, it contains the information about groups. etc pass svd contains the information about our user accounts, and etc shadow contains your hashes. And let's try to glue them together. User info, for example, and let's redirect our error output to user info, something like that, right? And after that, we may use, so we may specify exactly that we want to work with our normal output. User info number one, and something like that. And let's check such files, at least based on their size. So as you may see, the file size of user info and user info one are the same. And the same idea is true for our error logs. So we may omit specifying number one just for simplicity. And again, you may ask what number one actually means and what number two actually means. And it's I hope it's specified here, but number one means the number of our normal output. How it can be said? And number two means that it's the number of stream that is responsible for errors. And when we use such complicated construction, it means that we want to glue together both our errors and our normal output. So when we use such unclear construction, we will see that such resulting file will contain both data from this file and an error message that was generated due to access permissions issue. And let's look into the file user info all, and we see that it starts from the content of etc group, because such file was specified as first one. And then we see lines from etc passvd, and at the bottom of file we see the text of our error message. So this result is absolutely expected, and such construction works in the same way as it was shown. So regarding the point number 5, which questions do you have?
When you wrote this command, you wrote before more than sign one number. I can't understand why.
So do you mean this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So as I have explained several minutes several minutes before, I may omit number one, because number one is inserted and is used by default. So this one and this one are the same.
Number two only for errors, yeah?
Yes, right.
It's about output and input theory, right? Okay, thanks.
Yes, right. So when we operate with normal command output, the number of its stream is 1. But by default, when you work in Unix command line, number 1 is considered by default. That's why you may omit to specify number 1 in every command. But when you want to operate with error output, you need to specify number 2, because number 2 is not the default stream that is used. So that is number 1, it's normal command output. And when we operate with errors, we need to use the output stream number 2.
Do input has a number like output?
Yes, right. So its number is 0. But you may operate with input stream, and you may specify its number 0 mostly when you are a system developer and when you need to develop some kind of code in C programming language, and when you simply work in Unix shell. I cannot remember any situation when you need to explicitly specify number 0.
Okay, thank you.
So, and we will speak about input stream during the discussion of point number 7 and point number 8. Okay, team, do you have any more questions regarding the point number 5?
No.
Understood. And what about other teammates?
No questions. No.
Okay.
No questions, yes, because I have to. I have to read it one more time.
Okay, understood. So if any questions arise after the end of the lesson, you are free to write me in PM. Okay, so let's continue to the point number 6. And it's really simple, because the main difference between, for example, point 6 and point 4 is the exact place when we want to redirect our errors or our normal output. There is a special place. So in the terms of Linux, it is something like device, but that's not a honest device. It's a device emulation. And when we completely don't want to deal with something, we may redirect such output stream into def null. And def null is a special place. It's a black hole. So every information that is redirected to def null is completely lost. And it's really useful when we don't want to see, for example, any error messages. So when we are not interested in error log output, we can use absolutely the same command, but only with one exception, that at the end we will redirect our errors to def null, and we won't see them, right? So we may check this file, and we may see that there is some content, but due to error redirection to def null, we don't know anything about our errors or whether we were able to read everything and so on. For some reason, for some use cases, such trick is really useful, but for another, it's better to see your errors in a separate file. And there is one, how can be said, logical pitfall. When you use such construction really often, and for example, if you try to use such ending for every command that you execute, it means that you will never see any error. And it's not so useful. So please use such trick to hide all your errors only when you completely know what you do. Otherwise, you may not be aware of why your result is so why your result differs from the expected result. So, Tim, which questions do you have regarding such device to black hole all your information that is not required? Okay, so if right now you do not have any question, let's continue to pipes. And I remember your question regarding what pipe is and so on, and maybe it's so hard and complex. So as for pipes, pipe is a really useful thing to combine several utilities into one logic. And pipes are really amazing, and pipes really help you to take the most functionality from very many command line tools. Pipe is a special symbol, so pipe is not a name or a path to some command. Pipe special symbol tells your command line shell to bind the output of command 1 and to redirect the output of command 1 into standard input of command 2. So how it works? It's really very useful to know how grep tool works. But right now, just for simplicity, we may consider that grep tool finds and prints all lines taken from specified files to its output. So as you see, when we execute the command like that, we see all lines taken from this specified file that contain such pattern. Or we may for example, specify more than one file as arguments of the tool, and we will see every line that contains root pattern from both these files. So the output slightly differs because by default, when we invoke grep utility against more than one file, by default it prints the file name where such requested pattern was found. And we may see that this utility has taken the both input files and it prints all lines that contain root pattern from every specified file. So if I remember correctly, and returning to the question that was asked at the beginning of the lesson, I cannot remember everything, and if I want to suppress the output of file name, this argument is not so frequently used. That's why I need to refer to main page, and if I don't know what I need to search, I need to simply scroll the file and find the appropriate options manually. With matches, not here, not here, not here. Okay, so if we don't want to see the file names, we may specify -h argument, and everything will work as expected. And why I have taken these two files? Because I want to demonstrate how pipes really work. So do you see any difference? I mean, any difference between this command, any difference between results of this command and that command?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand at all because we talked about pip, and then we moved to grep, and I think I missed everything after this, so it's so difficult for me. Sorry.
Okay, so I have taken exactly this tool to demonstrate how pipes work. So we know that such tool will pick up every line from every specified specified files, and will print all lines that contain such pattern, right? And what if we want to use pipes? Such construction means the following. First, I want to glue together the content of this file and this file. Then I want such command output that will be produced by the first command to be redirected to the standard input of this tool. And the results are the same.
So
Right,
pipe,
in general, it's understandable, but still, sorry.
Okay, so I'm trying to pick up an appropriate analog from our non-IT and from our offline life. But so pipes are pipes. So pipes are used to transmit gas, petrol, and so on. And to let pipes work, we need someone who will send such information, and we need someone who will receive the information. And fortunately, this tool is more than able to receive input information, not only from files that are specified in your command line, but also from its here. So you may say, right, to the tool, so that it should receive input data not of based on files, but it should receive input information from its std_in.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
So
I got a question. What will it be another result if put instead of pipe double ampersand?
Absolutely, because so am I right that you have meant the following?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely right, because when we use such double ampersand construction that is described at the end of the lesson deck. So I'm sorry, that's here. That means that that the first command will be executed, and the second command will be executed only if the first one completed successfully. So such construction with double ampersand cannot provide you any functionality to send any data from command 1 and to receive such data in command 2. It
Okay.
So and double ampersand construction is simply and so it's about binary logic and it's not about output of any data and so on. So that means
It's this only one difference between these two commands, yeah? Pipe and double ampersand.
Not. There is a lot of differences because the implementation of pipe. So when we use pipe, our okay, we need to go deeper. So we see some symbols in white on black, and maybe it's seems like a magic, but actually it's not a magic. When you type commands, they are executed by a program. So and bash is the name of the program that is responsible for getting your input to execute the commands and to show you their results, right? And when it turns to pipe usage, it means that bash program will do something underground to properly link the output channel of command 1 and to link such output channel, or it's not a channel, to link std out of command 1 into std in command 2. And the implementation of pipe and the double ampersand is completely different. So seems that I realize how I can demonstrate and explain what pipe is based on such small picture. So imagine human, and you can imagine yourself, and all we know that we can take input information by using different channels. For example, we may listen voice, right? Or we may read a newspaper and so on. And imagine this guy may read a book, or he may listen some voice, right? And we can imagine that when he reads a book, he takes input information similar to input files. But when he listens voice, it's similar to information that comes by using pipes.
Further, did I catch it? So if we read the book, we get a text file. And if we listen to book, we get this information through the pipe.
Absolutely
Yes?
right. Absolutely right. And moreover, all we know that it's really hard to read a book and to listen someone's voice at the same time, because it's really hard and we can lose some kind of information and so on. And such idea, it's not a rule for Unix command line tools, but in most cases, it's true. So as for us, many Unix tools cannot take input information at the same time from std in and from files that are specified in the command line. So I mean the following. Let's return to this utility that can filter our input. And imagine that we would want to, I don't know. Okay. So when we use this utility against such simple text file. The idea is very simple. But if we try to provide input in the same time by using pipes and input files, we will have some issues. And you see that this tool really ignores anything that comes by using pipe. So roughly speaking, it means that it's better to use pipes or input files, but not to mix them into one tool at the same time.
Какие? Да нет, Вова нас дожирал. Да.
Ребята,
Ты меня не
потише, мы можем
говори.
вас слышать. Вячеслав. Further, can I ask you a question? For example, for us as testers, why do we need it? For example, if you give us any example, for example, I can say, if we can give an example, for example, we will have a task, and how we will test it using this information. You understand me?
Okay,
because
so
a lot of words.
Have I understood you correctly that you are interested in how would you apply such information and such skills? Okay,
yes, right.
Understood. So at first, I can say that without understanding of pipes, you will be limited, and you would use only very simple commands. So pipes really extend your power and your abilities in every Unix command line. And let me illustrate the sample. So what if, for example, what if I'm sorry because it's the end of very hard workday. I may take something from the home task. But there are no such good ideas here. Okay. Imagine that you have several input files. I'm sorry, that's not a good sample. Okay. Let's try to take all files from etc directory. We are not interested in the normal output. No, that's not a good sample again. So
give us an example from real life, please. Okay, it's really hard to. Okay, Fedor, maybe till the next time you can prepare some example, because for me it's still, I tried to realize what's that, but for me it's still just letters, just some letters.
Okay, Understood. So the main problem is that we haven't learned so much tools, and the more tools you learn, the more necessity of such construction you may suggest. One minute, please. Again. So that's not so useful here. Okay. Imagine a case when we want to print, for example, last 12 lines from some file, and to find something in such lines. So we may use tail command. We may specify which file is interesting for us, and we know that these lines are really the last 12 ones. We may check ourselves. So we may extract and we may even do this one. And we see that, yes, right, right now we just have extracted last 12 lines from such input file.
How we will check it? I mean, how will I find the mistake? How will I find the bug here? Or in all these lines?
Here. So have I understood you correctly that how we may ensure that exactly 12 lines were displayed, right?
Okay, I see these 12 lines, and I have to find a bug. Not a bug, but I mean, there is a problem. There is an issue here. How can I understand? There is the issue because tail, home, rabbit, spool, Kuzmich, and so on. Where is an issue? Why the application doesn't work?
Understood. So let me jump to some materials that will be explained after Linux, networks, databases, and web applications. So that would be our final material regarding Linux and networks, and it will be about how to localize the bug, especially if the bug is related to your applications, to your databases, and so on. Okay, it's not a problem. So we have this server. We know its IP address, and we know that some application here, and we may log in into the application, and we see something like your private space, and we can sign in and we can sign out, and everything works okay. But we may reproduce some kind of errors. So what if we not sudo systemctl status? Okay, so what's that? I don't want this process anymore. Not here. Okay, let's try to log in into such web application. and I know that the password is correct, but I'm pressing login and I don't have nothing. And that means that we need to, and imagine that such destructive operation was performed by someone else. So imagine that you don't know the root cause of why your web application is not working. And let's inspect log files of our web application in real-time mode. So we see that the problem really exists. And let's filter, for example, events that are related to user named, I don't know, Mike, right? And let's see how such command really work. Yes, right here. So, for example, Mike. And seems that we cannot see any messages that are related to Mike. Okay, maybe we may see something another interesting here, right? So when we specified something that is related to our keyword application, we see some useful information that may help us to find the root cause. And such sample is really simple. And let's try to reproduce something harder. So and let's wait for a while. Yes, right. Now it works. So we don't want to restart our backend application. We may do something like that. Not root. Okay. Journal CTL. So let's inspect log files of our backend application in real time, and let's see what's happening. Java our system. So I would want to how to say it? I would want to change the password for the database that is used by some of such application components. Okay, that's not a problem. What's the name of required script? Okay. So I would want to change the password for my database, and that will ruin the logic of the application, and there would be a lot of error messages there. So, and I would want to restart that, and let's see whether we will see some errors there. So in this window, we may see the following. I used the first command to display all events that come from my application, and by using the second command, I filter only those lines that contain this pattern or this pattern, because if I try to see the whole output, it will contain a lot of lines, and it would be really hard to find out such error messages. So such technique really simplifies the search of root cause and really saves my time. So hope I answered your question, but if something remains unclear, you may let me know, and I'll try to explain it maybe on another sample.
Okay, thank you. Maybe later. Okay.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
Not today. Okay. Thank you very much.
And just for difference, I may show you such output without any filtering. So when we try to journals.ctl, so let's look at the same unit. Let's look at the same unit, and okay, so we know
Okay,
that,
got it. It's massive. Okay, and what's that?
we will know what's that a bit later. So it's so you may not panic, and we will learn what's that a bit later. And right now, just in few words, so and why we see so much lines, and moreover, the most part of such lines are not so informative, because when we deal with Java applications, and when such application that doesn't contain any specific error handlers, in case of some error, your Java application will produce a lot of such non-informative lines, and it's really hard to figure out what's happening unless you use filter.
But why are they here? They mean something? All these lines? It's a kind of part of program? Part of, just a second, it's not a program, it's a part of code?
Yes and no. So when you see such non-informative messages from any Java application, such messages may be produced by your own code, or more probable from some external libraries that are used in your code. So let me check again, and let me show you again the code. So, for example, what if we want to filter not only warning or errors, but some other strings that contain SQL pattern? So let's do this, and let's restart our backend application. And let's wait for new messages here. Yes, right. And imagine that you have a complete documentation for this application, and imagine that every significant line in your logs is described well. And that means that based on such internal documentation, you may easily find the root cause by using only one command. So because the number of lines that remains after applying the filter is much less compared to unfiltered output, and that's more than real to inspect them manually by using your eyes, and we may easily find across this output such very suspective message, and we may assume that the root cause of such bug is something here. But the exact meaning of this command, of how to manage your services and so on, we will speak about that at the end of our Linux module. So right now it's just a demonstration why output filtering may be so useful, especially for typical QA tasks.
Okay, Fedor, thank you.
Okay, YouTube, because it's always not so simple to explain the exact meaning of pipes and especially the exact necessity of them. Okay, team. So when I look to the clock, I realize that we ran out of time, and I propose to move the remaining materials to the additional lesson, and let's decide by tomorrow morning when such additional lesson will take place. As far as I remember, the most part of the group is ready to perform the lesson tomorrow evening, but maybe it's better to insert such additional lesson at the end of the next week. And let's decide that by tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we can schedule it at least because tomorrow I do have some plans, and I can't I can't take this lesson on Tuesday, and somebody cannot take the lesson on Sunday or whatever, Saturday.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
right. So I exactly remember our discussion on Telegram, and that's why I propose to take the final decision about the exact time and date of our additional lesson by tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
You too.